render title, and we'll save it. Oh, and we need to delete this method since we got rid of it. So let's save it. Basically now it won't render the title, but if we change this to true, it will render the title. Another way to do this same thing is we can put a ternary in here, so we can say this.state.should render title. Basically, if it should render the title, we will return this h1. Otherwise, we will return null. So here again it's blank. If we put true up here, it will render the title. These are just some tricks for rendering to make your code cleaner. You can choose which one you like better. If we put too much of this down here, it might make it ugly down here, so sometimes it's good to move this logic up into a new method up here like this. Next, let's talk a little bit about routing with React. So for our Create React app, if we search for router here, they'll give you instructions for adding a router, so let's click on that. And it says here, adding a router, we can do npm install --save react router dom, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's just install that here. npm i-save, this is just shorthand for that, react router dom, and then there's a basic example here, so let's click on that. And it gives you, let's make this a little bit bigger. It gives you some sample code here, so let's replace our main component with this code right here. Let's replace app.js here, save it. Let's go back here now. And so you'll see here that this code has generated something new in our app. Let's take a look at what it does. It has the about, it has the topics, and you can see that the URL is changing appropriately up here. Let's just take a look at this file right here. You'll see that React Router DOM, we're importing browser router, route, and link. And so this router is the wrapper around our entire component. And then the link directs us to specific URLs. So you have the to attribute here. So this clicking the home will direct us to the slash here. Clicking on about will direct us to /about, just like that. Clicking on topics will direct us to topics. And then the route here, it basically says that when we hit the slash route, we're going to load the component home. When we hit the about route, we're going to load the component about. When we hit the topics route, we're going to load the component topics. And then here we're defining the actual components. So we're basically doing everything in one file here. So the home, you just display home, about displays the about, and then topics displays this list of topics here. And then down here, we're basically exporting the basic example, which is the component up here.
Okay, so now we're going to build a simple CRUD app using what we've learned. We're not going to set up a server or a database or anything. We're going to keep it simple, so we're going to be using local storage. So we'll just be reading, saving, updating, and deleting our data from local storage. So to begin, let's start over by doing npx create react app, and let's just do react app. Wait for that to install. And then let's cd into the directory, and then do yarn start, and then we'll see it show up in the browser. And now let's open up our folder for React app. So the first thing we're going to do is initiate our database, or in our case, local storage, with some initial products. So let's do local storage.setItem products. And then let's actually define our initial products above. So let's create an array with some products. Let's say the first one has a name of iPad and a price of $200. And the second one has a name of iPhone with a price of $650. And then let's set products as the JSON stringified version of the array that we just created. Now let's delete this boilerplate code and just type in a title for our app. Let's say Products Manager. And now let's fetch or read our products from local storage. We're going to do this in component will mount. So let's create that method, and then in there, let's type local storage.getItem products. And then let's set that to a constant called products. And then let's console log that out to make sure we're getting it correctly, and we see that we are. But that's the JSON stringified version, so we'll need to do JSON parse to get it in the JavaScript version. And now we see that products is a proper JavaScript array. Now let's create our state that we're going to store this array in. And then, instead of reading and writing to local storage all the time, let's just interact with the state to make things simpler. Just know that whenever we interact with the state, we can also write code to store the new state into local storage, or whatever database you want to use. So let's create a constructor method. Write super props, and then create our state object, where we'll just have one property called products, and it'll start as an empty array. Next, in our component will mount, after we get the products, let's use setState to set the products to the products we got from local storage. And then let's display our list of products by going to the render method. And then in single curly braces, we'll type this.state.products.map, then product, then an arrow for a function in ES6 syntax. And then for each product, we'll return a div with a key of product.name. And in this div, let's display spans that contain the product name and the product price. And then let's save to see if this displays correctly, and we see that it does. Next, let's create a separate method for getting our products, which we'll be using later on. So let's create a method called getProducts, and in here we'll just paste what we wrote in component did mount. And then in component will mount, let's put this.getProducts, and then save to make sure we didn't break anything. Now, let's write code to delete a product. First, let's break up what we have here into multiple lines to make it look cleaner. To get the pipes to keep their spaces, let's use asterisks in single curly braces, which are another ES6 feature. Asterisks make sure that spaces are preserved. Let's make a new section, and then let's create a delete button. Now, we're going to want to pass the name of the product we want to delete into our delete event handler. We could bind that name to the event handler in this file, but binding to methods in the render method isn't best practice, since that bound method would be recreated every time the state changes. So we're going to actually create a new component that has a self-contained state with a single product's name and price. So let's create a new file called productitem.js. And then let's copy over the code from the other file and just adjust it for our purposes. Let's delete the code up here. Delete the methods. And then let's copy over just the code for rendering the individual product. Let's replace the render here with that code. And let's rename the component product item. Let's delete the key in here, and then let's get the name and the price from the props. And then in app.js, let's import our product item component from // and let's actually rename our file using Pascal case. So productitem.js. And then import from product item. Next, let's replace the code down here with our product item component. And let's give this a key of product name And then let's pass in the name and the price of the product. We could pass in the name and the price separately like this.